Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of The Hype, where minds collide, ideas amplify. I'm your host, Alice Chung, with my co-host and colleague, Gift Mona.
Hello there, I am Gift Moon, and our show provides open discussion platforms that focus on cultural, technological, and social media issues related to Gen Z, right? In a thought-provoking manner. Now, I invite you to join in the discussion on the official CGTN app as well as our website, and we also are available on Weibo, Facebook, X, Yanshiping, and various other platforms as well.
In today's episode, we'll be covering the G20 summit that is ongoing right now. And it is the first time that the G20 is held in Johannesburg in South Africa and on the African continent, right?
Absolutely, Alice. It's the first time that the G20 is being hosted on the African continent. And today we've decided to invite some guests both online as well as on site in studio today, and I will call on them to please introduce themselves and include one word that is related to the G20. You can elaborate a little bit on that word and how it's related to the G20. And let us start with you, Kodani. Hello.
Thank you so much for such a warm welcome. My name is Kodani Hlachwayo. I am a project group leader responsible for equipment localization and also supplier development in China. And I'm also a growth strategist helping youth and students with career development as well as transformation of their career into something that is profitable for their growth as well as the companies that they work for if they are working. So the key word that resonates with me when I hear the word G20, it is transform. We have had a lot of policies or a lot of strategies that have been implemented. However, with G20, this one is coming at a bigger scale. And with the policy that has been put in place, which South Africa is focusing on solidarity, equality, as well as sustainability, we need to transform those policies into action. So the action has to be tracked into different milestones, show transparency, which could then lead into measurable results. So if we follow those steps, showing the milestones and also the measurable milestones, it would definitely lead into impactful results. Yeah.
I'm very glad that you can join us today, Kodani. How about you, Erin? Please, can you introduce yourself and give us your word?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Aaron Berkovich. I'm a professional storyteller in Beijing for many years. I am also the founder of a creative production agency in Beijing, helping organizations, governments, and individuals communicate across borders. And my word is alignment. So the G20 is not only an incredible platform for political leaders to come together and tackle and align conversation, understanding, and communication around global issues, but also it's an opportunity to align for business and stakeholders to tackle these big issues as well.
Thank you, Kodani and Aaron, for joining us. We also have two guests joining us online, Abdul and Ongi. So let's start with you, Ongi. I know that you're in Johannesburg right now covering the G20 summit. So are there any latest news that you want to share with us?
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Ongezwa Zibi, and I'm a digital editor at CGTN Africa. I'm currently at the G20 summit in Johannesburg, and the world leaders are currently having a meeting at the moment to discuss, global growth and the economy. My keyword actually for this meeting is impact. I am hoping that the impact of the G20 summit is felt beyond just South Africa, that it has an impact on the lives of all Africans, and that it can actually create sustainable change that can lead to progress that so many people need.
Thank you so much for bringing us the first-hand experience, Ongi, from the G20 summit in Johannesburg. Abdul, how about you?
Hi, my name is Abdul. I'm a co-founder of Smart Soil AI. Our mission is to empower farmer. Every farmer can be a soil scientist with the integration of soil sensors, artificial intelligence, and satellite data. For this event meeting, my keyword is empower. Empower, with the G20 commitment for the sustainable agriculture, shaping the future of farming, with the innovation and the globalization collaboration that ensure the food security for the generation to come.
That is very well said. I'm so glad that Abdul and Ongi, you can join us today. Now, if you're joining us and you're wondering what is the G20, well, it does refer to the group of 20, also known as the G20, which is an international forum that focuses on developing and also includes, developing and developed countries seeking to find solutions to global environment and economic and financial issues, right? The 2025 Johannesburg G20 Summit will be taking place from the 22nd until the 23rd of November. As we said earlier on, it is the first time that is taking place on the African continent, and the role of the G20 is to create global economic stability and development, while implementing important commitments such as the Pact for the Future and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, also known as the Agenda 30. Now, South Africa is going to be focusing, I think, Kodani, you touched on the theme for this year, on solidarity, equality, and sustainability, as well as aiming for peace and prosperity for people and the planet, while tackling climate change issues, working to preserve oceans and forests. And South Africa has also put in place measures within the public and the private sector to tackle these issues, right? So one organization that actually focuses on that is an agricultural organization, which is the National African Federation Farmers Union, also known as NAFU, which is an agricultural division of the National African Federated Chamber of Commerce, NAFCOC, in the Mpumalanga region. Now, this is a region that is considered as one of South Africa's most fertile region, right? It has partnered with Mpumalanga Green Cluster Agency as well as FEADT SA in driving cleaner, green and sustainable energy, which focuses on renewable energy sources and sustainable farming such as solar, wind, hydropower, as well as geothermal and biomass. Another organization that also is quite impactful in South Africa is the National Agricultural Research Systems, which is also known as NARS, which focuses on developing African scientists and shifting priorities from exports and more priorities onto food crops, with a call to action to seek to unite sub-regional, regional and global stakeholders in transformative agri-food research and innovation, and to address serious challenges in agri-food systems and contribute to achieving that 2030 Sustainable Development Goals that I spoke about earlier on. Now, we do know that the Global South is the backbone of the global agricultural industries, and green transition here requires joint efforts from both the public and the private sectors. And Ongi, I know that your work also covers China-South Africa agricultural partnerships, right? How do public-private collaboration drive green agricultural initiatives in your view?
So public and private collaboration has become one of the strongest drivers of green agricultural innovation in South Africa, particularly where smallholder farmers are involved. So you'll usually find partnerships between tech companies and agribusiness and government as well. And it extends across to tools that many small farmer holders are able to access and use. An example of this is we've seen a digital platform such as Hello Tractor, which connects farmers to a tractor that they can rent, and then they pay as they use it, which helps to reduce costs and improve land preparation and cut down on fuel use as well. And another example is the Ngwazi app, which supports farmers with weather insights and crop management tips. And it directly links them to input suppliers and buyers as well. And these kinds of apps make it easier for farmers to be able to sustain, the businesses that they have.
I like the fact that you touched on small farmer holders. What would you say is the role that cooperatives play in supporting those small farmer holders?
So cooperatives play a major role in making sure that small farmer holders are able to access, resources and to strengthen their bargaining power as well, to ensure that the benefits of public-private investments reach the smallest producers, because that's very important for communities as well. Unemployment is one of the biggest problems in South Africa, and when you have small farmer holders have the ability to access, things like capital and equipment, that enables the community as a whole to grow, which is essential for green transition as well.
Very nice.
Thank you, Ongi, for sharing with us. I have a question for Kodani. So you're the expert, and how do you feel like the public sector and the private sector combine together in terms of green energy uses, especially in South Africa?
Yeah, so as a South African, I'm quite involved in, currently I'm based in China, so I'm involved in also tracking what is happening in South Africa and also looking at the global goals. So I'm quite happy with just transition energy strategy that our public electricity distributor is now transitioning into. We were affected a lot by electricity power cuts, and looking at their strategy of decommissioning some of the plants and repurposing some of the plants and turn them into agricultural use as well as research facilities. So that's actually a great strategy, which is also aligned with what sustainable development would like to achieve. And looking at my involvement as well, in South Africa, was in an estate where we were highly affected with power cuts. Sometimes we go for 2 days without power because of cable theft. And as a private-owned property, they actually, or rather, I was involved as a trustee in the development of solar panels, which also offloaded the high energy supply from the main distributor, from using the battery stored power from the solar panels that we implemented. And the picture that you saw there, it's actually of the opening of the plant in our estate with the East London mayor. So it was quite a really proud moment to to understand the impacts that we are then contributing in the government as well as the community as a whole as well. And it was also beneficial for ourselves, where we could not experience power cuts anymore. I mean, we could, however, we had the solution in place, which it's great to have, solution-based mindset. Yeah.
Thank you, Kodani, for sharing with us. So when you talk about the solar panels, I actually came up with my previous experience when I went to a business trip in Shandong 5 months ago. So I went to the Jinan East service area, and what I noticed was that there are a lot of solar panels alongside the highways, and also there were also placed on the top of the parking lots, which when I was very surprised by the results that those solar panels can not only serve the whole service area's electricity for 1,000 people who are visiting that day by day, but also it can serve the electricity of the nearby villages and communities. So for Aaron, I have a question for you. You're a professional storyteller, and you have been to so many regions of China. So have you noticed how green tech especially help promoted the lives of the farmers, and like how to promote them for them to trade, to grow, and to farm?
Absolutely. So over the last more than 15 years that I've been living in Beijing and traveling around China, one project that always really sticks with me was a project we did with coffee farmers in rural Yunnan. And looking at the kind of revolution of the digital economy in China that happened since as early as 2016. You not only are giving these people access to internet, education and information, best practices, standards for understanding organic, fair trade, as well as direct access to consumers. So you're seeing individual farmers in some cases being able to create their own kind of micro brands and sell, instead of their entire farm supply of coffee for a year at commodity prices to a large multinational, you're seeing them be able to create their own small brands and sell it online. So through some of these initiatives that we've seen, some farmers were able to triple their income in 1 year, simply because they have access to technology, access to the internet, access to markets. And when you also look at the sustainability aspect of it, it's not just the best practices to elevate the quality of their products, but it's collecting and sharing those best practices. So it's really kind of democratized the way that people have access to these types of opportunities.
That's very impressive.
That's very impressive, right, absolutely. Sticking to the topic of farming now, I know that Abdul, you've developed an intuitive app which integrates AI as well as satellite data in terms of giving real-time soil analysis. I want to know from you, could you share how public policies from your government support tech adoption, as well as private sector such as the innovations that you've come up with, collaborated to implement this in Bangladesh as well as Pakistani farms?
Like in many developing countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, farmers often struggle with limited access to the accurate soil data and timely crop insight due to financial resources. To fill this critical gap, our technology integrate soil sensors, artificial intelligence, and satellite imagery to provide real-time soil health, crop monitoring system, and disease diagnosis system. The biggest barrier is that smallholder farmers often cannot adopt these tools without supportive government policies, such as digital agriculture program, training system, and the most important one, incentivize the technology adoption. Without this alignment, even the best innovation fail to reach the ground. Uh, when the government promote agri-tech adoption, the private sector deliver user-friendly and locally adaptable solution that make immediately effect. These kind of a collaboration make advanced technology reachable for the farmer in the region like Pakistan, Bangladesh, that will improve decision making and increasing the productivity of the farmer.
Thank you, Abdul. I have to say that is a huge progress. So green agriculture cannot thrive without being stable. And for the Global South, combining the sustainability and also the ecological goal together with the economic goals are the keys. So we started a social media poll on YouTube community and we asked netizens, so we can see it's shown on screen. So have you ever heard of sustainable energy technology and green transition? So surprisingly, 91% of them said yes. So we can safely assume that there are more and more netizens around the world are being acknowledged and familiar with sustainable development. And Aaron, you have mentioned that you've been to diverse regions of China. So is there a moment or a specific story where you can find that sustainability is not a slogan, but it is a key and it is also a survival logic?
So one of the incredible things I've seen during my projects, and this is true in China and it's also historically been implemented throughout Southeast Asia, there is an ancient practice of using ducks to fertilize, de-pest rice paddies. So being able to create this kind of homogeneous ecosystem where you use livestock, which is also a source of income, to take better care of your fields, to get rid of pests, fertilize the fields, and it creates this very balanced ecosystem. Using that in conjunction with new technologies, so whether it's a selectively bred rice that's resilient to higher heat or different environmental connections to produce higher yields, you're seeing this really wonderful kind of mix of ancient traditional farming practices and technologies with modern application tracking data to really enhance the overall production and performance of these different farms in rural areas. So using it as an example where we can take our historic knowledge that's been around for 1,000 years and apply modern technology to improve upon those best practices, we're seeing some really innovative approaches to how we can not only have clean unpolluted and sustainable farming practices developing across the region.
I can just imagine how much of a spectacle it is seeing all those ducks going out into the fields, right?
A sea of quacking that's
sea of
spreading out.
We've also asked our netizens a poll: how can AI assist in solving food security, global warming, as well as sustainability? Now, 68% chose by optimizing agricultural practices like intelligent planting. Going back to you, Abdul, in your previous projects, right, which country has produced the most surprising results thus far amongst the G20 nations, as well as part of the Global South countries?
Yeah, we observed that especially when these digital assessment tools were introduced to the small farming communities, the result is very, very slow. But the adoption is very slow, but the result is very strong, especially in the region of rice and wheat cultivation. Initially, if we see the Pakistan, the initial number of a farmer who adopting technology was very small. But the real challenge is not the technology performance in developing countries, is a accessibility gap. Many farmers lack modern technology training and trust on digital system. As a result, positive environment practices do not scale as fast as they should. When farmers adopt these tools, it shows direct financial and environmental impact, like efficient water use, healthier soil, that result, the operational cost, and the better soil crop result. These gains make it clear that environmental sustainability practice become economically sustainability when the right tool reach to the right person.
I love the fact that you also spoke on the economical sustainability aspect of it. Going back to another poll that we've done with our netizens, we've asked what interests you the most about being involved in green energy and global sustainable development through technological initiatives. 73% of people chose environmental impact and sustainability. Now, this clearly indicates that more people are more aware of the impact that environmental issues are having globally and do believe that technology can assist in combating those issues. Now, going back to you, Kodani, you have mentored some Ugandan youths in biogas technology. I want you to tell us more about that in terms of, replacing firewood with cost-saving alternatives. How does this initiative balance energy efficiency, cost reduction, and environmental protection?
Yeah, so just to give you a background behind it, I'm part of a fellowship program as a mentor from a private sector, which brings in youth with a lot of initiatives that are aligned with the sustainability strategy. So my mentee from Uganda, I was actually privileged to be teamed up with her. She had an initiative of developing a biogas system, stove, which is, or rather, a biogas system to create cow dung, or rather generate cow dung into an energy supply for cooking, and the residue from the cow dung could also be used as fertilizer. So from that, what benefits the community is obviously saving the planet from cutting trees. In Uganda, they still use firewood for cooking, and which then affects our environment and planet. Then using that system, it helps with saving the planet. And with then using the cow dung, it cooks faster, it's also healthy, it's easily accessible because they've got a lot of cows, and it's affordable. I mean, for fertilization, when I engage with a lot of farmers, like small holding farmers, their biggest issue, or rather challenge, is affordability. They can, start farming, but when you have to fertilize, then they cannot afford it. And my engagement as well with, the youth, students, they've got a lot of initiatives where they could help us achieve this goal of, having like sustainable energy, or rather green energy. So the biggest gap is they don't have resources or funding. If private sectors could then generate or implement more programs, fellowship programs to empower and also to mentor the youth to bring those ideas into life, it will help us to fast track the achievement of the sustainable goal by 2030. So we need more youth. They've got a lot of ideas.
And that's so accessible, right? Think about in the rural areas, how you can use that biogas technology to produce so much. That's very amazing to hear. What lessons would you say can other global south countries learn about making green energy profitable for rural communities?
Looking at how other countries have done it, I think that's where we need to start. So we cannot reinvent the wheel where it has been reinvented. And in terms of the profitabilities, in rural areas, we've got a lot of farms. I mean, my dad owns like a small holding, but in terms of him having the knowledge that he could turn the crops that he plants into something that is profitable, the knowledge is not there. So we still need to collaborate with the people that are mostly affected about what sustainability or rather green energy is about, and also educate them on how they can turn their plants or their farming into something profitable. Yeah, I think that could be helpful. That could be helpful. Yeah.
You know, Kodani, your story of mentoring the youth, the young people, the students in different African countries is actually resonate well with our next social media poll question, in which we asked, how can we encourage more young people to engage in G20 related topics? And 46% of them agreed by including more young voices in discussions. So let's turn to you, Ongi. So we're talking about sustainability and agriculture. Can you elaborate on this field? When we talk about if any sustainable jobs or agricultural jobs are being created, especially given the fact of the China-South Africa agreement?
Danny just mentioned the importance of achieving the sustainable goals, the UN sustainable goals. President Ramaphosa just elaborated on it actually in his speech earlier today as he opened the G20 summit, where he was speaking about the importance of achieving the UN sustainable goals by 2030. And this just proves just how important green agricultural projects are, especially in South Africa, in creating, sustainable and long-term employment by creating climate smart farming and even creating stable jobs for people in communities in rural areas. An example of this is last year I was in communication with somebody who is in Limpopo, a farmer, and he is in charge of the Madimbo Max, and it has grown over the years since 2005 with over 600 hectares today. And they don't just specialize anymore in macadamias, they also specialize in bananas and providing honey and avocados. And it's a group and a collective of like about, I think, 30 farmers who are producing between 5 and 50 tons of, resources. And this creates a lot of employment for people, especially in South Africa. And recently, the South African Agricultural Minister, John Steenhuisen, also signed a very important agreement with China to provide 5-stone fruit. And this multi-million dollar actually agreement is going to create approximately 350 direct jobs. Now, with direct jobs, you're looking at the person who actually works in the organization, but the impact is way beyond, because that one person could be feeding a family of 5, of 10, and that is very important for sustainability. And you're also looking at people in terms of jobs, in terms of transportation and packaging, and these are the things that South Africans at this point need more of, because with a unemployment rate that is so high, especially amongst the youth, green innovation and technological jobs are very important for them to become better.
Thank you, Onggi, for bringing us the latest news. As Chinese Premier Li Qiang has arrived in Johannesburg, South Africa, to attend the G20 summit, I also have some latest information from our directing team. So China has helped Burundi with hybrid rice technology and implemented agriculture infrastructure construction projects in more than 10 countries, including Ethiopia, and providing training on technical trade measures for African countries. So we just mentioned that we talk about sustainability and also green energy. Media is definitely the key to spread the news and also giving more important suggestions for the public, for the general public. And so I have a follow-up question for Onggi. What progress have you witnessed while covering China-Africa Agriculture Corporation stories?
Noticed a great acceleration in terms of the China-Africa partnerships because they are growing and driving initiatives such as solar-powered irrigation and biofertilizers and renewable energy greenhouses, especially in remote provinces like Limpopo and the Eastern Cape. And these projects usually help to create jobs and they boost productivity and they support the smallholder farmers that I had mentioned earlier. And they also promote climate smart agriculture and long-term economic growth. Now, all of these, when you put them together, are very important for the communities that they serve.
All right. Okay. Moving on to you, Aaron. I know that you, covered a bit of the G20 in Hangzhou a couple of years ago as a storyteller. What are some of the narrative gaps that you found most Westerners have specifically relating to China's agriculture versus its actual reality?
I think when people look at a lot of Asia, particularly from the West, and if they're not involved in agriculture, the picture that comes to mind is something maybe that's 100 years ago. When you think about having to feed a population of 1.4 billion people, and you go out to some of these rural areas, the kind of industrial capacity for farming is quite incredible. So whether it's using machinery and infrastructure, soil data collection and satellite imaging to increase crop yield, implementing drip irrigation to reduce water usage and wastage while increasing crop yield across different processes, you have this incredible scale that's not only creating food for the local population, but also creating enough that it can be exported significantly to a lot of the rest of the world. And the other thing that's really incredible that's been revolutionary in China and already being implemented internationally is the logistics and supply chain. So whether it's automated warehousing, cold storage units, the technology involved in the logistics, so not only growing food for that many people in especially remote parts of the country, but within 48 hours getting it on your plate in, say, America or Africa or Latin America, as an example.
Right. What would you then say makes sustainability content engaging, specifically for the global audiences?
So when I think it comes to sustainability or any of these different types of terms, the key element that's often missing is the emotional connection. So when it comes to policymakers or when it comes to kind of the business side, you have some of the smartest people in the world trying to solve these incredibly important challenges. But many of the cases, they get caught up in the industry in a way where it's, when introducing it to a broader audience, it's too technical, too specific, it's not relatable to them as an individual. But when we see alignment between policy, business, and stakeholder, the people that are actually affected by the operations of these different practices are affected by the implementation of these different policies. And when you can show the immediate benefit to each of them across these different kind of segments, aligning the storytelling in a way that we feel first and we understand how we each benefit. One example is the adoption of wind energy across China as an example, where they originally set quite a low bar that they knew they could easily maintain, saying, we're going to try it. Because one, they don't want to completely undermine the coal industry and shake the entire ecosystem too much. But when they saw how profitable, how sustainable in the sense of not only good for the environment, but in terms of long-term job creation, maintenance, and kind of case studies for other things, you have a multi-stakeholder value chain where you can count the dollars at the end of the day and how profitable it is for these different systems to implement. So being able to understand how each stakeholder from the lowest level villager whose land might be utilized to build these windmills to the national level policy saying how can we set a standard for transitioning to adopt the UN Sustainable Development Goals or otherwise. It's aligning those ways through emotional, visual, show not tell kind of storytelling to make that action a clear process. It's not here's a 500-page document with all the technical details of how it works. I mean, very important, absolutely necessary, but to get the will of the people involved, whether it's the business, the government, or the stakeholders, aligning the messaging through visual storytelling, emotional calls and connections, I think would be really a powerful tool to further push these initiatives along the way.
When you touch on storytelling, obviously there's media that's involved, right? And Kodani, I'd like you to also join in on this one. How would media, you, Kodani and Aaron, how would media collaborating with private and public sector work in terms of, you know, educating youths and people in rural communities about G20 sustainability and development goals? And why is it critical for driving participation in green initiatives?
Looking at the timeline for UN is very short, 2030, that's like around the corner.
Yes.
And looking at the influence that the media has and the way the youth is easily influenced and easily get inspired by the media, it is then important that we break down the policies into more practical and understandable storytelling way that could then make the youth understand that this is accessible and it's something that they can also do. So the more we have people from the media, like for example, your influencers, they are great storytellers. I mean, in terms of investment in influencers, it's not a big investment because they will bring in the subject, they will bring in the storytelling and make it become more understandable by the people. And I love what also Ongi mentioned, you know, as an example for Limpopo. Limpopo, I'm from Venda, and in Venda there's only Venda-speaking people. So Venda has got fertilize the land, which can really benefit the government and also the country in terms of exports from you know, the vegetables that we plant or the fruits. However, in terms of the strategy that we're talking about, how is the policy translated into the languages that are then understandable to somebody who's never been exposed to English, never been exposed to other languages? I mean, in South Africa, we've got 11 official languages. So one of the things
12
that...
now.
12, you know, including the San
yes,
language.
Yes.
So one of the benefits that would then bring into translating that document, then it would be easy to understand to the people that would benefit more. I mean, looking at also the target for 300 mission for 300 people in Africa that are affected with, you know, without clean energy as well as food security. So these are the people that should also get the message and also understand how they can also benefit from it. As you explained, you know, the why is very important. The media can translate that. Everyone has an access to social media where, I mean, we see a lot of dancing. Just imagine what impact social media could have if we start storytelling about the advantage that G20 you know, goals are going to generate, and also how the country and the villages, you know, because that's also the biggest target that needs to be addressed, or rather fixed, would benefit, you know, understanding exactly what the policies mean and exactly what then have an impact on their lives. I mean, yeah, I can go on. I can really go on.
I get you. I completely get you. Aaron, would you like to add on to that?
I think one thing to clarify for anybody that's watching, social media is incredible in the fact that it can entertain, educate, and inspire.
All at once.
And you have to focus on kind of each of these stakeholders, stakeholders in a way where one thing a lot of people look at when they approach creating media is they'll create one video, put it out there and say, I did my job, I'm done. But it needs to be an ongoing conversation.
Right.
So not only is it about continuously educating people on what it is, how it is, and why it's going, but you're also creating a platform. So not only with KOLs, but we do this a lot with our international clients where we can do video case studies, where we do a deep dive into what they did, why it worked, and how it can be replicated in other areas. And when you could show somebody in 3 minutes or less, I mean, we did major social media campaigns and looking at 5 million followers, the average attention span for a globally award-winning campaign was 3 seconds.
3 seconds.
Yeah.
So how to take something that's so important and so serious, but is often told in a way that's too academic, how to make it exciting and interesting for a bigger audience to invest 3 minutes to go deeper into why and how they can not only understand what's going on and why it's important, but how they can actually profit or how they can benefit from it in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely opportunity to use media, to use filmmaking, to use socials, to create that platform or opportunity to.
Yeah. And to also add on that, we've got engineers that could also show the energy transformation, you know, the windmills, the solar panels. That could also help other engineers to see how accessible these topics are, that they could also be able to generate them into their countries. And also we've got so many agricultural people, or rather people who are in farming, that are also showcasing what they're doing in farming. So if we could then really put a huge focus and investment in those storytelling, then it would allow us to reach that goal.
That is really well said. Oh, wait, we have Angi to add on more? Please continue, Angi.
Yes, I just wanted to speak on what Kodani also mentioned in terms of the language. Earlier this year, I had covered a story about the importance of Google Translate, also incorporating things like Google Translate, actually incorporating more African languages to be able to ensure that people understand. I think if the language is there, then people are always eager to learn. The apps aren't as accommodating. And so if you have things that you have some farmers who want to know more, but might not be able to understand what is actually being asked of them. And so I think that language bit in terms of making sure that the policies and things around language and making sure that people understand clearly what it is that they are signing up for and all those types of things is very important. So that point is very important for the farmers as well.
Thank you, Angi, for your sharings. And we really covered a lot today. So together, we explored how the inclusive technology thrives through G20 corporations and how green agriculture and transition empowers the global south. So why don't we conclude our discussion today by inviting each one of our guests to form a sentence by using the previous keywords that you presented earlier in this episode. Let's start with Kodani first.
So my keyword was transform, and looking at how we can transform our minds and also get involved. Let's collaborate with the leaders as well as the people that are affected with the shortage of energy as well as food security. If we then collaborate with them, it would allow us to address the right challenges. To add on that, the people that are affected, stop looking from far, get involved, get your hands dirty if you want to see the change that you really need. So change starts with you, and if you get involved, then the action will be impactful.
Thank you, Kodani. And how about you, Aaron?
My word was align. And I'm hoping that through storytelling and communication, we'll have alignment not only across the leadership from the G20, but also with the businesses that are involved in these global economies, and also the stakeholders. Because when we all work together from the lowest level to the leadership of countries, all of the possibilities are on the table.
From transformation to alignment. Angi, how about you?
My keyword was impact, and I'm hoping that summits, just like the G20, that the impact of those summits are not just felt in South Africa, but across the continent.
Well said. Abdul?
My keyword is empower. With the right technology and collaboration, we can empower the farmer to tackle the today's challenges and build a sustainable and successful future of agriculture. because we see the farmer around the world, they are not very educated. So the collaboration with the government and the media companies is very important for that. And ensuring the food security and the environmental resilience is for the generation to come.
Now, I'm sure that you've gotten so much insight from our discussion today right here on The Hype. And I'm also very glad that, this G20 is happening in my home country in South Africa. Now, thank you very much for joining us in this episode where minds collide, ideas amplify. Do remember, we want you to engage in this conversation. Leave your comments on the official CGTN app, or as well as the website, on Weibo, on Facebook, on X, on Yan Xinping. We're everywhere. So we'd like to hear from you.
Thank you again for our guests and viewers to join us on this special episode of The Hype, where minds collide, ideas amplify. I'm your host, Alice Chung. Till next time, stay awesome. Bye.
Goodbye.